I'd like to keep a couple of younger
I
ones.
knew I lost it.
Just ain't gonna work.
How many heifer calves you got?
7 out of 11. Or no, 8 out of 11. 3 bull calves and the rest were heifers. I said,
I
man,
only got one heifer calf. Ronnie Buckle.
Joe gets to take a vacation Thursday night.
Thank you, John. Thank you. Okay, we gotta take him in the order we got.
And that's what you're going to talk about. Oh, I love it. I love it.
Oh my God.
yes, talked to a lot of guys. They figured the price.
If you would like to speak to the county board during the public comments section, you first have to fill out a registration slip that's over there on that table and turn it into the county board chair here. Please keep in mind that the county board will not be able to respond to your comments or ask you any questions. Your comments are informational only. If further action is required, your comments and concerns will be directed to the appropriate department or committee. Thank you.
I can shave your head, you can shave mine.
Doesn't look that bad.
Getting better.
Yeah.
I do on my computer. There you go.
Bob, it looks nice.
I think so too.
I like it.
My wife almost killed me.
Probably is.
Tried to call you.
I'm not important anymore. Okay, let's call the meeting of the Sheriff County Board of Supervisors to order, please. And Melanie will take roll call. Mrs. Krentz. Here. Mr. Jones.
Here.
Mr. Tim.
Here.
Mr. Piaski.
Here.
Mr. Eckstein.
Here.
Mr. Weddy.
Here.
Mrs. Collada. Here. Mr. King.
Here.
Mr. Wadel.
Here.
Mr. Crawford. Here. Mr. Kirschner.
Here.
Okay, thank you. At this time, we will have a public hearing for the Adams Columbia Electric Cooperative, and John Gessner will come up and explain our resolution we have on our agenda tonight.
Good evening. I'm here to represent Adams Columbia relating to the resolution. We have we're looking to identify more projects to use this project funding on money on, and that's it's not additional work that we don't normally do, but it's just that we have the money there, but some of the money that the projects we had came well under budget, so we're looking to identify more projects that this money can also be used on for our members.
Does anyone have questions for John? Not? Thank you. And then this will come up in our regular agenda later. Oh, I'm sorry. Does the public have any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll act on this later, and we'll resume the county board meeting at this time. So we will have silent prayer and pledge of allegiance. pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we'll take public comments, and we have 3 people that have signed up, and Jerry Luttrop will go first. Jerry? Thank you.
Good evening. I'm here, here to comment about the proposal to charge back election costs to the municipalities. I'm presently serving and have been the clerk of Aurora for the last 10 years and question the need or the reasoning at this time to charge these costs back to the municipalities. I did a little research the last several days, and in fact, a fellow clerk of mine sent out an email to the clerks to get their comments about what they all pay. Diverse answers came from the bulk of them, from all the way from paying nothing to paying the charges that are being proposed. When those came in and showed me no sense of direction, I started calling neighboring counties to find out directly from the county clerks what they were doing, and came up with figures that came in far less as to what is being proposed by this board or to this board at this time. For example, in Waupaca County, there are no charges to the municipalities other than the SVRS fees, and the clerk there told me that no municipality pays more than $200 per year. No matter how big they are, that's the most they pay. Green Lake County, the SVRS fees are $1.50 per entry for new voters and $1 for changes. They charge for ballots, but make ballots available on the internet for the clerks so the clerks can make their own. There are no charges for that. There are no other charges. Winnebago County, I did not speak with the county clerk. I spoke with a neighboring town clerk who has 1,100 voters. They're charged $300 for SVRS fee. They also have a local charge for programming if the election relates to local contest. Otherwise, there are no charges. That information I found most beneficial. I guess the other thing that I discovered, I spoke with Melanie a day or two ago and asked what the percentage of the clerk's budget went to elections, and Melanie informed me that it was about 15%. I also asked her to give me the percentage of the county budget that is spent for elections, and that's just over 1/3 of 1%. I compared that to what we spent last year in our town for election costs, and we have just shy of $2,000 cash expense, the election workers and the various expenses we have now. Out of a $190,000 budget, that comes to 1% of our budget. That doesn't include what you folks passed on to us this year, and I have no problem with that.
Excuse me, Jerry, your 3 minutes are up. I'm sorry.
Okay. If you have further questions, I've got additional facts and figures here.
Thank you very much. And now we have John Eilers.
we video, or we tape this, so
Oh,
you need
I'm
to...
sorry. I represent the Village of Wild Rose, and I understand that you are trying to balance your budget, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate the heads up that you have given us beforehand if we have to include it in our budget. But you know as well as I do that times are tight all over, and you're trying to balance your budget, we're trying to balance our budget, and it's getting to be a rougher time for both of us. The thing I wonder about is when the Village of Wild Rose votes, or any township or any municipality in the county, we also do take care of the federal and state elections, it's just not county elections. So if you, I don't know if that you took that into consideration when you talked about that or what. But we're also covering, I believe at the most, unless there's primaries, you only have 2 county elections per year. I could be wrong or right on that, but there is a lot of state and federal. So we just thought we were charged too much. Of course, everybody's going to tell you that. So that's all I got to say, and I just want you people to consider that option. Thanks.
Thank you very much, John. And now we have John Piaski.
I'm John Piaski from Town of Warren, also chairman of the County Towns Association unit. And I didn't poll my association members, which is all the towns in the county, because there wasn't enough time. However, I'm sure that I'm speaking for all of them. Many of you are town officials, or have been, or village, city officials. You've had more than just the county board experience. We've been operating very tight. This year we got hit by having all the recall elections and everything else. It's all an expense for us, much more so than it is just for the county office. And my big concern is I like to play with numbers, and these numbers that were put out in front of me picks winners and losers. We had 14 losers and 9 winners using these numbers across the county. The large populations all won. The small populations all lost, to the tune of $500, $600, $700 out of the total. And now the way I did it, and I'm just a dumb farmer, we're trying to cover $18,650. We've got 12,177 registered voters. That comes out to 1.532 cents per voter, $1.52 per voter. Okay, the categories were kind of broad, and I understand this because for putting numbers down, it's easier to categorize everything. But I saw some municipalities, one in particular, going to be charged $975, and the actual cost per voter for the small community would have figured out that it should have cost them $1,490. So they had a $600 savings. Some of the small communities, one of them paid $675, and according to the voter poll, it was only $421 that they should have been paying. And the work is in mainly keeping the poll list up. The poll list is dedicated to number of voters. And I guess to cut it short and sweet, this is just a peanut in the county budget. And for our town budgets, elections are big. We're providing the service to all the voters for all the elections, whether it's county, state, or local. And those voters are really concerned, and in my mind, this is actually putting a cost for each individual that's paying taxes in my community to have to pay a little bit more to vote. And I don't think we should be charging for votes. And that's basically where I'm coming from. I think if I went through the books, I could slash and cut and burn, and I'd make a lot of people mad, but I wouldn't go to work and make my voters mad. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, now we need an approval of the agenda.
I so move.
A motion by Weddy, second by Eckstein to approve the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we need an approval of the minutes of the July 17th, 2012 meeting.
So move.
We have a motion by Wadle, second by Jones. Is there any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have no old business. We'll move on to new business, and we will start with reports. And Ruth will give us the county bonding projects report.
Good evening. I don't have much of a voice left, so I'm only going to give you a highlight of the written report. Everything is going well with the construction. Just so everybody is aware, there is an open house scheduled for August 28th from 4 to 6 for the downstairs remodel in the old work release center. So I hope everybody can make it to see how that project has been done. I did have an opportunity to talk to the sheriff late this afternoon. Motorola has been here all week with multiple technicians, and they have been testing the various equipment in various locations in the county and making sure that we are having coverage in all areas of the county, as well as being able to hear things. We did discover that the electrical outlets in the dispatch center were not the right ones to work with the new equipment. So those all had to be changed, and dispatch area was shut down for a few hours to take care of that. But that has all been done, and so hopefully when we're ready for the changeover, things will go a lot more smoothly. As far as Spillman, we're down to only one mobile unit that's not working, and that seems to be a matter of getting that municipality hooked up with our IT person. They seem to be working at different times. We haven't located that. Otherwise, they're all up and running, and the rest of the problems should be fixed soon.
Thank you, Ruth. Pine Breeze Dairy, Town of Bloomfield.
Hi, Terry Dopp-Puckstedt from the Land Conservation and Zoning Office. I wanted to give you an update. As many of you may already know, the old Henschke farm, known as Hope Acres Dairy, has been purchased by a partnership of people that wish to expand that operation. The farm is located just east of State Highway 49 on Aspen Avenue in sections 28 and 29 of the town of Bloomfield. The group that's purchased the farm is currently milking 400 cows at the facility, and they already own and operate Lake Breeze Dairy near Malone, Wisconsin, and Fond du Lac County, and in addition, they are going through the process of starting another milking operation near Medford, Wisconsin, in Taylor County, known as North Breeze Dairy. The Lake Breeze Dairy currently has approximately 3,000 cows, and the North Breeze operation proposes to have around 4,000 cows. I'm not sure if that's animal units or cows, because I couldn't tell, but fairly large milking operations. The proposal under review for Pine Breeze Dairy in Bloomfield is to have 2,400 head of cattle, comprising of both milking cows and dry cows. They propose to raise all calves and replacement heifers off-site. Contracts are underway and mostly complete with local growers to buy the forage and grain that are necessary to feed this many animals. And manure spreading contracts have also been developed with area landowners to ensure that all waste generated on the dairy are dispersed in accordance with manure storage and nutrient management requirements. Necessary permits from DNR have been applied for and are currently being reviewed. DNR will hold a public hearing on September 11th as part of that review process. It's a requirement of what's called a WPDES permit, or the Wisconsin Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permit. That permit lists the parameters of the expansion as follows. The cows will have 2,400 milk and dry cows. That's 3,600 animal units, because one cow equals 1.4 animal units. Construction will include a new milking parlor, 4 new freestall barns, 4 concrete manure storage structures, feed storage and runoff controls, and 2 sand lanes for sand bedding reclamation. The dairy is expected to generate 27 million gallons of manure and processed wastewater per year. The manure storage facility will hold 10% more, or 30 million gallons, as a safety precaution. And the waste are proposed to be spread onto almost 3,600 acres of land that are currently under contract or will be very soon with area landowners. The engineering and nutrient management plans have been reviewed at the state level and were found to be in compliance with the state's regulations, so those have been conditionally approved. The state's regulations have two components to them. First, there's the landowner proposing the facility must follow state standards for manure storage under the water quality regulations, and that's a Natural Resources Code, NR 243. And they must also follow NRCS's standards for nutrient management, or the application of that manure to the land, under a code known as 590. It's my understanding that the state has relatively strict guidelines and parameters that are necessary for making permit applications of this type, and they were developed by experts around the state familiar with the dairy industry, along with many regulatory personnel. One thing to keep in mind, and we talk about this all the time, is that if you submit a permit application and you meet all the requirements, the permitting agency is obligated to issue those permits. It's much the same at the county level. If you come in for a building permit and you want to build a new house and you have everything in order, I'm going to have to sign and issue that permit. So, remember that that's kind of how permits work, and the state is going to be no different than anyone else. The only permit that is reviewed and issued at the county level is the permit for the actual manure storage facility. The plans were submitted and reviewed by our staff, as well as engineers that work for the state at DATCAP. This is Waushara County's first over 1,000 animal unit operation, and our staff needed some assistance from the engineers at DATCAP for the storage facility, and that's when the engineers stepped in to help us out. Again, I want to remind you that if the permit meets our requirements, we are obligated to issue that permit, and there were time limits within which we had to review and comment on the permit. We completed our review, requested additional information to make the permit complete and in accordance with the standards of our code and all of the previously mentioned state and federal standards, and the engineering firm then resubmitted that necessary information, and the manure storage permit was conditionally approved on August 6th. Finally, I want to discuss some laws regarding just the actual siting of these large animal operations. So I think you all know the state legislature approved rules that prohibit a municipality from being more restrictive than the state whenever property owners are looking to place or site an operation such as this. And these rules were recently upheld by the state Supreme Court when a township in Adams County tried to put additional restrictions on a large operation that started up there in 2007. So I guess in conclusion of those siting regulations, if a municipality wanted to deny an operation that meets all the state requirements and obtains all of their permits, I don't believe that they can do so under current laws. And furthermore, if a county or township wanted to place additional restrictions on the operation as it relates to manure storage, land spreading, number of animals, odor controls, anything like that, above those state and federal standards that they have to meet, they cannot, unless there's indisputable scientific evidence that they can come up with that without the additional controls there will be damage to the environment. Well, as I'm sure you can guess, providing that information is extremely costly and probably very hard to do because all the regulations were certainly done on scientific studies and proven guidelines to start with. So I guess that's kind of it from my viewpoint on what's happening there and how the law relates to it. Does anyone have any questions or? Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much, Terry. All right, now we're going to go on to presentations, and our first one will be East Central Wisconsin Regional Planning Commission update, and Eric is here to give us the good word.
Thank you, Chair Collada, and thank you, supervisors, for some time this evening. I did have a nice spiffy little PowerPoint presentation, but technical glitches prevented that from occurring, so you're probably going to end up seeing me a little less time here, but not as many pretty pictures. You'll have to look at my face, sorry. Luckily, I remembered much of what I told the Waupaca County Board this morning, and not that you're the same entity, obviously, but a lot of similarities in the work that we do out in the western part of our region. Regional planning commissions, of course, for those that don't know, are quasi-governmental advisory units of government that were created under executive order by a variety of governors in the late 60s and early 70s. We have a 10-county area, of which 7 counties are voluntarily members and then subject to a levy which is created annually by the commission. Each county has a minimum of 3 representatives. For Waushara County, your chair, Donna Collada, is now a member after replacing Norm Weiss, and we'll certainly miss Norm around the office and the meetings. He was certainly a staple, and we appreciate his time and dedication. Larry Tim and Neil Strelo are the two others. I need to also make mention that Ms. Collada also has volunteered, might be a good way to put it, to be put in the position of the vice chair for the commission. Based on the way historically things have worked, we have rotated through counties. It was Outagamie County's turn to fill the vice chair position, and because of some things going on at their county and county boards, they didn't feel they could dedicate the time. So Ms. Collada generously accepted that position. So we thank her and look forward to working with her as the future chair. Also, for the first time in our 40-year history, Menominee County is actually the chair and holding the chair position for the commission. In the past, we haven't had a lot of capacity or interest or passion from that area to serve in that position, but I'm pleased to say that our new chair, Bob Hermes, is certainly gaining interest and a little more foothold and being comfortable in that position, and so we appreciate that too. After 40 years of existence, as the cover of our report identifies, we've come a long way within the region and have had a lot of accomplishments. I think there's a lot more to go. Part of that is evidenced by the fact that the Commission has taken time the last year to develop a strategic plan. I can't actually imagine that we didn't have anything of the sorts in the 40 years prior to it. We just basically relied on the state statutes to dictate what we were doing and our relationships with the counties and communities that drive some of those needs. We felt it was time to develop that strategic plan so we can ensure some consistency over time and some good goals that we want to achieve, and also develop a mission statement so that we can better explain ourselves to the general public. Reciting state code will put someone to sleep, obviously, and we need to better let folks know what we really do in the work that we do. So we now have a draft mission statement that will be considered by the full commission in October, and that is basically, and I had to memorize this because I don't have my materials, so I'm close. But East Central's mission is to help develop strategic, visionary, and coordinated plans and solutions that improve the region's beauty, health, economy, and society. And that really is the outcome of much of the work that we do, and we need people to see that. We thought about that more in terms of having a little more detail, and what would you have as a little elevator speech if you had a few points written on a card that you had to talk to somebody about what an RPC is. We thought of a few things to help translate that, and this ties into some of the accomplishments that we've had within your county on projects over the last year. Number one, we help to increase mobility of our population in many ways, whether it's by bike, walking, auto, transit, you name it. That's evidenced through a lot of the work that we've been doing with our Safe Routes to School program, our regional transportation program, the fact that we are the designated MPO for the urban areas within the Fox Valley, and work with DOT on longer range corridor plans. We also help to try and connect housing and jobs, and we've got some mismatches in a lot of areas in the region, and a lot of the activities we work on help to do that. We help to conserve the environment with these plans, recently evidenced by our involvement as a regional aquatic invasive species coordinator position, which touches the eastern end of your county for the West Winnebago Pool Lakes. We also try and make sure we have effective, efficient infrastructure out there, and that's done mainly through our sewer service area planning program. We also try and make our region more competitive in the economy, not only the local economy, but the regional and the global. We had spent the last year and a half working with our partners at Bay Lake Regional Planning Commission, other stakeholders, and a private consultant to develop a Northeast Wisconsin global trade strategy. That strategy is focused on small to medium-sized businesses and getting them the information they need in order to embark on global trade. Many are hesitant to do so. They don't have the capacity, and as we found out through the study, the local economic development folks don't have the knowledge or capacity either, so they're not out there preaching this. We have a great implementation strategy figured out. We're partnering with entities like New North and New Rep, Small Business Administration, who already has volunteered to spend 75% of one staff person's time on this. We were just about floored when we heard that and didn't even have to ask much. So it's a matter of coordinating these things, and we hope the group responsible for that, some of my staff and others, is going to make a round of visits to county boards to give you a little more detail, because that's some exciting stuff and really has some potential. A few other things we're involved with relate to trying to improve and preserve the heritage and culture of our region, and that's evidenced through our Fox Wisconsin Heritage Parkway program, which has been ongoing at some level for almost the last 20 to 30 years in terms of its vision. And then, of course, we are charged statutorily to help coordinate and get cooperation on multi-jurisdictional issues related to planning, and then lastly, support our communities and our counties that need some services on technical assistance. You may also know that our technical assistance letters went out a few weeks ago. Those are due back in November, so we encourage you to pass those along to your local plan commissions, staff, others, and generate a good list of projects that we can hopefully pick a handful from. Last year and going into this year, we've done a few things, such as the update of the Waushara County Park and Recreation Plan, assisting the Village of Wild Rose and State Highway 22 on some flooding issues. So those projects kind of range all over the place. To kind of wrap things up here, we got to thinking about how do we remain relevant. Our agency is unique in the sense that we kind of bounce around based on the needs of the counties and communities to some degree wherever the funding might be. We transform ourselves to be able to take advantage of those things, leverage the dollars that our counties give to us on an annual basis so we can do more planning that otherwise wouldn't be done. So we need to stay relevant, and we've got some thoughts regarding that as we move forward over the next 40 years. I don't think I'll be here for all of them, but maybe 20. We'll see. But we need to start talking more seriously about things such as healthy and livable communities. We've had some good conversations with the State Department of Health Services, building off our Safe Routes program. We think we can do some effective programming in that area, work with some new partners that we've never worked with, and try and have some effect on the communities of making sure the physical environment and setting is there to be a healthy, walkable, livable community. At a community scale or even broader scale as it pertains to the environment, the heritage, the culture, we need to start talking more about this concept of sense of place. It's something that's a bit nebulous, not easy to define, but we all kind of know it when we see it and we feel it. And everybody's sense of place is different, but the characteristics that make our diverse region unique are things that need to be preserved. You've probably heard that term through comprehensive planning of preserving rural character. Well, I'd ask one of you to define that for me. It's not easy. So it goes along those lines. Economic development, we're making some advances with Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation to sign a memorandum of understanding that would allow us to be sort of a service arm of that state agency. They would be giving us a very expensive economic modeling software that we can't afford, giving it to all the RPCs in exchange for providing service of running analyses and reports for communities, community leaders, businesses, economic development organizations, those kinds of things with rather quick turnaround. Plenty of other things we could and should talk about in the future. Resiliency planning, food systems, better job of planning processes with scenario planning. We need to deal with diversity of the populations in our region, both urban and rural. We need to do a better job marketing ourselves and getting out there and using social media. I'm starting to feel old, and I still only have a flip phone, not an iPhone yet. Web mapping, those kinds of things, and of course look for new ways to support our communities as the needs change out there. So that being said, just to finalize stuff, talk numbers here because everyone's always interested in the numbers at budget time. But for 2011, which is our report year, your levy was about $45,800. We reduced that levy this year to $42,600, and our commission took action at the end of July to approve a total levy that was 1.16% less than 2012, and that translates into a 2.87% reduction for Waushara County. So your levy for 2013 will be about $41,375. This is the 5th year in a row we've reduced the levy. Every year our total budget goes up. So again, I can comfortably stand here and say we're doing more with less. We don't know how long we can continue to do that, so I don't want anyone to have really big expectations. There may be a year here where that starts to tick up to recognize some of the real costs of doing business, but we're very thankful for your participation, and I'll leave it at that if there's any questions.
Thank you very much, Eric. I appreciate it.
Thank you. You know where to find me if you got a question. Take care. Have a good evening.
Thank you. All right, we'll have library updates from the Waushara County librarians.
I'm Colette Ross from the Leon Saxville Library in Pine River, and I'm just into my second summer reading program. So we finished that up, and this year we almost quadrupled our attendance each week. So we are really addressing getting the young readers in, and that's one of our population we like to attract. But being a dual township out there, we have a lot of other people that we'd really like to make aware of our services. So that's one of our goals we hope to work on next year, get more people aware of what is happening in Pine River, because we do not have a grocery store or a gas station or even a restaurant that's open every day in Pine River. So people are really coming to the library, the core ones that we do have that are repeat users. So we hope to spread the word and keep people coming there so that we can use your dollars wisely. We have limited hours, but we're open 6 days a week, and we try to just be very efficient with the staff. So thank you.
Good evening. I'm Linda Helmrich from the Plainfield Public Library, and currently we're in the process of completing a $5,000 grant which we received from the Mead Witter Foundation. The monies was used to purchase children's nonfiction material, adult nonfiction material, and large print books. Over the summer, we've noticed our computer use has been extensively used for people trying to take testing for an employment. The Oasis Prairie Ramblers, they will be having a display at the library, and it'll show all of their entries from this year's county fair. And we enjoy having that at our library. It stimulates young people's interest to wanting to join 4-H, which is, I think, very important in our county. And then also on September 29th, which is on a Saturday from 9 until noon, our library is going to be hosting our author, Mr. Lance Fox, who just completed climbing Mount Everest, and he has wrote a book, and he is going to have book signing, and his book is No Place But Up. So if you don't have anything going on, stop at the library. We'd be happy to see you folks. Thank you.
What's the date on that?
September 29th. That's on Saturday from 9 until noon.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Nicole Overbeck from the Watoma Library, and one of the goals that we had last year and continuing this year is just to bring the community more into the library and give them a feeling of ownership in the library. And I think we're making really great strides in that. One of the ways we've been doing it is through programming. Last year we had 100 programs. We had an attendance of 1,509 people. And granted, some of those were like a school visit, so that was a lot of people, or ongoing things like story time. This year we've done things like the 4-H kids have come in, the ambassadors. We've had the Kiwanis Key Clubs come in and do programs. We had the Parkside kids do programs. We had Blue Ribbons Kids Day, and we gave out books at that point too, along with promoting for the summer reading program. We've done computer tutoring for the adults, and we've seen a crazy different assortment of things, from GPS people who need to get their maps updated to an older couple that needed pharmacy discounts, and it's just a wide range of things. One thing we also have been doing with the Sheriff County Historical Society, they have the Genealogy Center in the library, and there's going to be a dedication on September 12th, so please come if you can. And they've done a wonderful job. Dee has been having classes at the library. And just thank you for all of your help.
Hi, my name is Lisa Eisch. I'm at the Hancock Public Library. Like Linda, we too received the $5,000 grant from the Mead Witter Foundation from Wisconsin Rapids. We put ours towards computer furniture, which we really needed. Patrons won't bang their knees when they come to sit at the tables to do their work at the computer. They fit the space much better for us. Also, the rest of the money is going to go towards our junior fiction area, which really needs to be updated. One thing that I'm noticing at the Hancock Library are younger families coming in. As an example, usually my summer reading program, I got 20 kids to sign up. This year I had 31, which is a really good, big improvement for us. I'm also seeing more patrons come in that maybe they had a library card but never used it, so now they're coming in and updating it, and maybe there's a variety of reasons that they're using it, but part of it I think is because they're realizing they can borrow books for free, borrow movies for free. The economy is, you know, if they can cut back on buying things for themselves, it's great. The other thing that keeps us busy is the microfilm. In the summer, we get really busy with that. And one story I'd like to share, I had a gentleman come in from the Plainfield area. He had an obituary, but they could never figure out where the remains of this person was. It was from back in the 1900s, and he had a goal to figure it out before a family reunion in August. So he brought in his date, and we were looking through the papers, and we discovered he only had a partial obituary. The date of death that this gentleman had, it was Hannibal Culver from, like I said, 1900 something. It was actually continued on several pages because there was a major snowstorm at that time. And his remains were actually held until a further, or a better time for the burial, and that ended up in Plover. This gentleman did come back to tell me that the family got together and they solved the mystery, and they were quite happy. Thank you.
Good evening, Jean Nelson, Red Granite Library Director. As the newly hired director, my goal was to increase programming to our patrons, and so during the months of June and July, we offered programs 3 times per week geared toward children, teens, and adults. Our turnout was tremendous. We offered workshops on everything from hands-on crafts to informational presentations, to demonstrations, to teen and adult book talks, and we also offered a variety of computer classes. Our summer reading program was a huge success with the largest number of participants in Red Granite's history. We also followed up with a celebration in which the Friends of the Library supported and donated to provide a free community event, which included a picnic, games, and a Rondini magic show. So the common message that I have heard as a new director from the patrons and the business people who have contributed as well is that the library is very vital to the community, as important as a school. And so I want to thank you for your past support and ask you for your continued support. Thank you.
I'm Kent Barnard. I'm the new library director in Wild Rose. It's my first year. It's my 3rd month right now, so I can't give you any figures on what we did last year, but I think we had a pretty good year. We had 77 kids sign up for the summer reading program and 15 teens, which they hadn't done before. Starting a robotics and a rocketry program in the library with teenage, I'm hoping to get girls, but so far just boys. I have received a grant, HCHY or HYHC, Healthy Youth, Healthy Communities, to fund part of that. And I'd just like to thank you for the support you've given us so far, and then we hope to continue. Thank you.
Please note he's wearing his Wild Rose Wildcat colors. That's right.
I'm Mark Aaron from Winnifox Library System, and I just want to thank you for your time, your support, and ask if anyone has any questions at this point.
I'd like to make a comment. We are generally small rural communities, and it takes a lot to have us, I don't know, I'm looking for the word congeal, to become a unit. And I think our libraries provide a vital service as quasi-community centers. And all I know is that I'm tremendously supportive of our libraries. You guys do just a wonderful job. You know, you're teaching our young kids to read, which is vital to their futures. You provide a place for families to come and spend a quality time together. And you provide a service to the community as a whole. So I think that as far as the money we spend in support of the libraries, it's you get a lot of bang for your buck. So I think you guys do a great job, and thank you. I appreciate it.
If there are no questions, we'll let you get on with the rest of your meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, and thank you, librarians. All right, next we have Veterans Services Annual Report. Bill Rosenow from the Veterans Services Officer.
Good evening. Bill Rosenow with Sheriff County Veterans Services. It's just an update to my annual report. The federal GDX, gross distribution of expenditures from the federal VA, was released a couple of months after their timeline. So I just kind of wanted to update those numbers. Waushara County veterans continue to grow as economic impact in Waushara County. Last year, they realized a little over $14 million in actual and realized compensation. A lot of that with the help of my office. We're realizing each fiscal year right now continuing growth in just about every measurable economic field. Direct compensation in 2010 was about a little over just about $5.5 million in the pockets of Waushara County veterans. In 2011, that was up to a little over $8 million. We're looking at education benefits about almost 3 times. In 2010, it was $176,000 in education benefits. In 2011, it went up to $424,000. Another one that we realized was back checks, and I wish I could take credit for this, but it was actually the introduction of Agent Orange some new Agent Orange presumptives. In 2010, $673,000 into the pockets of Waushara County veterans, and last year, a little over $1 million. Looking at a comparison of office usage, that also continues to grow. I think the hard times are actually bringing more people in looking for both federal, state, and local benefits. One of the big ones is access to VA health care, because that has a tendency to relieve pressure on Medicaid funds. Realize that VA health care is funded from the federal level, so every dollar we can get from the federal level is a dollar we don't have to spend on the county or state level. Barring any questions, that pretty much concludes my report. I'm not going to bore you with a lot of figures.
There are no questions? Thank you so much. I think we all appreciate the good work you're doing with Waushara County veterans. Thank you. All right, we have a discussion and possible action items. First, the emergency medical dispatch. I think this is up for discussion. This was part of our bonding project, and I believe Joe has some comments he would like to make.
Well, I guess that I brought it up after the last meeting because we set a date for June 1st to be implemented and operational, and it hasn't been done, and I don't know what the procedure is to do, so I guess Deb has done a little checking, and we found out that the training needs to be done yet before it go online. Everything else is in place. We have purchased the computer software that's there, and we paid for the training, but we need to come up with money to pay for the hours for the employees to be trained. I don't know what the next step is. I would assume it goes to Sheriff's Committee to find out what we can get this thing done and get a firm date, and I don't know. I guess I would like to see what comments are from the rest of the board here. It's something that they told us would be operational June 1st, and it's not done. Something to get it going. So I guess let anybody else want to say anything on it?
Can you tell me why it hasn't been done?
Gosh, we've received different comments on why it hasn't been done. I guess the sheriff has said he doesn't want to do it halfway, and he feels he can't at this time put enough emphasis on it. I really don't know why it isn't done. The training has not taken place.
But the training has been paid. We have the money there for the training, right?
For the training, but not the hours for the dispatchers to receive the training. I know we have one dispatcher that had received the training years ago. How many years ago, Joe? Maybe 4 or 5 years ago?
Probably 4.
Maybe even longer than that.
Yeah.
It's been a while.
Mm-hmm. But I guess I'm asking Deb, do we need to come up with the money to pay the dispatchers?
Is Sheriff Peterson here tonight? No. Okay. Well, I think that you really have to send this back to public safety, and with the sheriff's assistance, you need to come up with a timeline, what the issues are, what the problems are, the things that are a roadblock to having this done. And you know, I don't think that any of us can answer all of these questions. I really think that the department has to have some input into this.
Could we have a little more of an explanation of exactly what emergency medical dispatch is, for the sake of all the people that are here?
Who's out there? No one out there. Jen, do you know anything about emergency medical dispatch that you'd like to share?
Well, basically, I'll tell you what we know, what we bought. We bought a software program that interfaces with the Spillman and the dispatch program, and it has a series of questions. As the dispatcher has talked to the person making the calls, they ask them certain questions, and if they answer this way, then they ask this question, and it's to try to help give basic first aid while you're waiting for the response team to get there. So that's what emergency medical dispatch is meant to do.
Everett.
Basically, if somebody's choking, if there's something going on, that dispatcher can tell that person that's on the phone what to do, or how to keep that person, or how to shut the blood off from bleeding to death, or anything like that. Is that correct?
Supposedly, depending upon the answers that they give,
Well,
then
yeah.
they should be able to give some type of solution to at least turn people over until emergency personnel are on the scene.
Trying to point out how important this could be to save lives, that's all. Thank you.
And we did have a presentation from the lady in Winnebago County that runs the dispatch center, and they've been using this for a while now, and think it's just the greatest program ever, because the dispatcher can sit there. If he doesn't have this program, he's sort of at a loss, you know, because people are expecting, you know, to tell them what to do until the ambulance gets there. Well, with this program, they read it line by line, and Winnebago County thinks it's a great program. I think it's a good program. I would want the help from the dispatcher if it were me calling, and you know, so that's basically, like Ruth said, what the program does.
I really think that the Public Safety Committee needs to put some pressure where pressure is necessary to get this going. If we have the opportunities or the ability to train, to get the training paid for and so on, I think we really need to move forward and get it, because I really think the people of our community deserve this.
Thank you. I agree. Joe?
What I understand right now is if someone calls in, the dispatchers are not allowed to tell them anything that they can do, because it puts a liability on them without this dispatch EMD. It tells them, and it goes through by steps, and it's all on a computer, and it's on flip charts. So they have to follow the protocol of each line. But right now, they cannot tell someone what to do over the phone. And the people are really frustrated over it.
Mark?
I think you have a lot of people living in this county that think we do have that.
I think so too.
Just there's people out here in the audience that are nodding their heads that think that they can call, and it just it doesn't happen. So it's a very important program, very important.
Well, we thought it was important enough to pass it and to put it in the bonding program. And I think if we have the program and, you know, and the training is paid for, we've got to get it done.
We need to hear more from the community about this too.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yes.
What?
Maybe they should call the sheriff's department
Right, right.
and ask them why it isn't happening.
I'd like to know just how many hours of training are necessary for this.
24, I believe.
Pardon me?
24 per year per dispatcher.
And does this have to be renewed every year?
Yes.
There's a refresher, and what I understand is most of that, the upkeeping is on the computer, so they can do it from the workstation, or they can do it at home, or it doesn't all have to be in a classroom. The first training is classroom. So it's,
And they do come on site to do that first 24 hours. I think we have it set up that they will do up to 3 sets of 3-day training.
How many
on-
people
on
are in
site.
dispatch now?
I believe it's 10.
That's 240 hours of training then.
Yes.
Can it be done in more than one session? I know
Yes.
there's not a 24-hour session, but I mean, like 5 people at one time and 5 at another, or however they want to break it up.
Yes, they'll come back up to 3 times and do the 3-day trainings.
I guess the problem would be scheduling the people to be there when there's a training session. They'd have to schedule the people to show up, to be there for that 3-hour, 4-hour module, whatever they need each time. Right, so we're gonna have costs of paying the dispatchers more money or relief dispatchers more money. Cover them.
I think we can't look at this as cost, though.
Right.
I agree.
Pardon?
We're talking lives.
I know.
Deb, where would this money come from, that they,
Well, you would have to decide that. You would have to appropriate the funds. If the extra funds are needed, you would need to appropriate those funds. Not the training, no. The software itself, that training is paid for. It's the salary that is associated with that training would not be part of the bond.
I would like to see the committee then look into the cost of the actual training itself, to see what it would be, and then we can figure out where we go from there.
I'd like to see that next month, or next meeting.
By next meeting?
Okay, I think maybe we can come up with something, right, Deb?
Yes.
All right, then this will go back on the, yes?
Well, I can just tell you that when I spoke to the sheriff this afternoon, I asked him if there was anything he could tell me, because this was on the agenda. He said that he has been looking at dispatcher training, and they are going to start implementing. State is also looking at dispatcher training, which encompasses more than just EMD, that there might be some requirements coming down the road to have dispatchers state certified. And they're working with Fox Valley Tech. And he also said that he would be working on his budget stuff tomorrow, and that he was working on a plan that he would present to the committee to include the EMD training as part of his 2013 budget, and so you would know what those numbers were.
But I think, was it our last meeting and the one before, he said that he would start the training in September. And if he's talking about putting in his 2013 budget, then that means the training won't be done until after the first of the year, right?
He said he is starting to look, he's working with Fox Valley Tech on some training for dispatchers, but then he would also put together a plan that we could consider with the budget.
Yes.
I would like to see the committee take it back and work on it, come back to the next county board with a report, implementation, when it can get done, and where we can find the money from, and keep it going so we can get it installed and operational by the first of the year, end of December, however you word it.
Okay, this will go back to the Public Safety Committee at the next meeting, and then it will also come to County Board at our next meeting. All right, thank you very much. Compensation study for non-union, non-elected positions, and this will be Deb.
Right, and I'm not asking for any decisions at all tonight. The Personnel Committee hasn't actually taken official position on this. I did present everyone with the Whipley proposal. Whipley is a CPA and consultant firm, And what has been discussed is Green Lake, Waushara, Marquette, and Adams County would go in on a joint venture. Part of the issue is that we have like 7 different compensation plans, and some of them had been previously associated with unions that are no longer in existence, or at least up in the air. We're not totally sure until all the court cases are done. So we have some compensation plans that go from a start to a 24-month range. We have some that are start to 36-month. We have some that go all the way up to 20 years, one that even goes up to 25 years. It's all over the map. And so what the compensation study would do is look at that as the county as a whole. So it would be all the non-union, non-elected positions, and come up with a plan that is easier to administer, easier for employees to understand, and a part of it is ranking the positions, and then another part is to go out and do a survey, a labor market survey, to make sure that we're competitive. But what I really want you to think about is these things are always controversial. Anytime you go into a compensation study, people perceive that as winners and losers. And so if you ask our employees, there probably isn't anybody that's going to say they're underpaid, right? You know, they're not, or overpaid. So, I'm sorry, overpaid. So they're going to perceive that as being, you know, winners and losers in these things. And so the 2 things I need you to consider is if they find that we're way underpaid, does that mean we have to come up with more money? And are you willing to come up with more money in these economic times? And the other thing is, if people are overpaid, do we red circle them? Are we going to make those decisions that you're not going to get a raise for a while? So these things are always controversial, and I don't want anybody to go into these thinking they're not controversial, because they are. The cost of doing this plan, just to set this all up, you know, other than my time, Whipley's, it's $10,000. So Waushara would pay $10,000, Green Lake would pay $10,000, Adams and Marquette would each pay $10,000. So you're probably not going to find a less expensive way to set the plan up. That part of it is, I think, is very competitive, and they will do a fine job for us. The problem is, when you have all the information, are you going to want to implement it? And so that's what I really want you to think about, because, again, I can probably tell you just off the top of my head in areas that we probably pay too much and areas that we don't pay enough. I can tell you that just because of the responses that we get in applications. So I know there's going to be some adjustments, and are you willing to take that step? So that's what I want you to think about. And personnel will talk about it at their next meeting. Executive has talked about it a little bit. And we'll bring it back next month. So thank you. Any questions at all? Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Deb. All right, we are going to move on to charging back for municipal election costs, including statewide voter registration system services. I will turn this over to Mel.
I'm going to talk from here so everybody in the county board and the audience can see me. Just to give you a little background on all this, in case, just to put us all on the same page, the Help America Vote Act was passed in 2002, and it said that all states had to have a statewide voter registration database. And the state of Wisconsin developed one. And it was thought that it was just going to be printing out poll books and entering new voter registrations at that time. It was really not thought to be any big deal. Over the years, that's proven to be very not the case. Every year, we get more and more duties to perform. And there are certain duties, actually most of SVRS are municipal duties. And I think the state always intends for municipalities to take over those duties eventually, but in rural places like Waushara County, at least in today's world, that's just not a possibility. So back in 2006, Waushara County said that we would take on some of these responsibilities for municipalities because a lot of you didn't have high-speed internet and you have part-time clerks. However, at that time, it was thought it wouldn't be very much work, so my predecessor decided not to follow the lead of most other counties and charge for these services. I can tell you probably at least a quarter of our staff time this year was taken up with elections work, and majority of that was municipal work. And as everyone knows, time is money, and these are duties that technically aren't our responsibility. Of course, we're not going to say that we're not going to provide these services anymore and leave our municipalities in a lurch, but it's my feeling that, you know, you pay highway workers for doing work on your municipal roads. Why should the county clerk's office be expected to perform these duties on your behalf without any sort of payback for that? Just to give you some ideas here of what we talked about at executive, absentee ballot notices, my office always publishes. This is usually about $350 every election, and it lists all the municipalities, how to vote by absentee, and all the municipalities' clerks' contact information. That costs us about $350 every election, and most county clerks charge back their municipalities for those costs because it has nothing to do with the county clerk's office. So that would be a very minimal cost. I mean, 350 divided by 26 is very, very minimal, like $16 an election. Absentee ballot envelopes, and this is all laid out in statutes. What's the state's responsibility? What's the county's responsibility? What's the municipality's responsibility? Absentee ballot envelopes, we've always bought and just doled out to municipalities at no charge. That probably costs my office about $150 per election. Again, when you divide that out by, you know, how many you use, that's not a great deal of money for you. Voting machine programming, in the springtime, municipalities have their races on the ballot, on the computer ballot or whatever, the voting machine ballots. And this probably costs us about $1,000 per year, and that we don't charge municipalities back for the cost of putting their races onto our voting machines. The bulk of our time and effort is spent on that statewide voter registration system, though. I've done surveys across the state. We're one of maybe 5 counties that doesn't charge back anything for these services out of 71 counties. And the same survey asked clerks, county clerks, how that affects their budgets. And most of them are undercharging significantly because they're losing a lot of money. They're reporting that they're losing a lot of money or losing at least a little money. Most of them aren't even breaking even with what they charge municipalities. So, you know, Winnebago County may not charge much, but they're losing a lot of money, and they're pushing their municipalities to take over the services themselves because they just can't sustain it anymore. Just to give you some idea, one Wisconsin county has a contractor that does SVRS services for their municipalities. So they have one dedicated person that works on SVRS. And so they have a really good idea of how much time is spent on these services because it's an hourly employee. That's all they do is SVRS. And in 2008, which was a presidential year similar to this one, they found that for every municipality, it was taking that person 16 hours to do work in SVRS during the spring elections and 28 hours, to do work associated with the fall elections, 28 hours per municipality. So that's a huge amount of time. It would equate to 368 hours of county clerk's office staff time during spring elections and 644 hours during fall elections. I mean, it's huge. It's a huge drain on my office's time, and ultimately time is money. I'm not saying that I did lay out, just for the executive committee's consideration, some numbers of what could be charged. I didn't mean it in any way to be written in stone, or I'm not asking you to approve the fee schedule as it is, but I did a lot of research on other counties and how they're doing things. It's all across the board, as I think Jerry said, on what they charge. Most of them do charge an annual fee, and some charge a per election charge. So the explanations or examples I gave by municipality, this would be a worst-case scenario situation. This is based on 5 or 6 elections like we've had this year. So it would almost always be, I hope we don't have another year like this year. This would always be lower than this amount that's listed here. But again, this is just me throwing an idea out. I thought it was something I've thought for years. It's something that should have been addressed a long time ago. You know, you can't get something for nothing, and it's a huge drain on my office. So if anybody has any questions, I don't want to ramble on anymore. It's kind of complicated, and you know, you have other options of how you can charge. You don't have to charge. You know, it's just me throwing this out here saying this is somewhere that we could get some revenue in my office where we really don't bring in too much revenue for the county because of the nature of what we do.
Everett, do you have a question?
Not a question, just a comment. I'm one of those that John spoke of. I'm town chairman of Springwater. We have other people on the board that are supervisors. Sometimes when you got 2 hats, county and town, they bind a little bit. With me, it's obviously a direct conflict of interest, and I won't speak for it or against it, but I can't vote for it one way or another either, because I believe it's a conflict. So that's all.
Okay, thank you. Bob Waito.
I talked to, had the opportunity to talk to several town chairmen, Oasis, Dakota, Mount Morris, and ourselves, and we're all opposed to this for the simple reason we are more limited than the county as far as what we can do with the levy. You at least have a means to, and somebody's got to pay it. I mean, but the townships are burdened beyond, they've got everything cut beyond bleeding already, and we have no means to come up with this extra money. And if this were the case, would the county clerk's budget be reduced by this $18,000 that the towns are going to pick up, or not?
It could be.
I mean, that way would maybe change some of the minds of the people, but to say your budget is going to stay the same and still charge the townships this $600, $700, $800, whatever the case may be, that's kind of double whammy. And these other gentlemen felt the same way as I did, so I'm just expressing their concerns.
I had 3, I represent 4 towns, and 3 of them are against it. The village, they said that didn't matter to them, they'd be okay with it.
Any other questions? Larry.
It looks like your total estimate of the cost is $27,000, and you're only asking for a little over 18. Is that correct?
Well, this was just in this huge election year. If we would have charged back what wasn't our cost, yes, it hit my budget by $27,000. And granted, most of that is in SVRS services, which is mostly time, but there are tremendous material costs too. We print out all the poll books, which I think are 2,000 copies. You know, there's all kinds of little costs here and there.
The other thing I noticed that in the fee schedule, proposed fee schedule, you don't have the city of Watoma, you don't have the town of Marion, you don't have the city of Berlin.
Right.
And
that's because they provide their own SVRS services. They're self-providers, so we don't have to do anything with their SVRS at all.
But we still would have to pay. They still have a share of cost for the notices and for the absentee
Right.
ballots and
Yes.
stuff like that. Right?
And that's what I explained. I sent that to their town officials also and explained to them that only the minimal charges of the notices and the absentee envelopes.
They still would have no fee.
They wouldn't have an SVRS fee, no, because they do all their own work in that program.
This on the back page isn't all SVRS, is it?
This on the back page is, yes.
That's all SVRS?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so if the county were to pick up all these costs, then the town of Marion and the town of, or city of Watoma and the city of Berlin residents would also be helping to pay for it.
Correct. That's absolutely correct.
And really, it just, that isn't fair to them.
Yeah, that's been mentioned in the past.
I mean, it's just something to think about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Because they're paying for their own.
Right. They have their own staff, their own hours, their own materials.
It was suggested that the townships could provide their own if they would prefer to do it that way. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and we would only charge if they still wanted the county clerk to do it. So,
I think another thing that's important is that the 72 county clerks have been arguing with the state, trying to make them understand how burdensome all these requirements are. If you added 20 more voices into that in just our little county and multiply that by the whole state, maybe the governmental accounting board might get a little more nervous and sit up and take notice. Right now, the county is the only player, the only one that's having to deal with this. But maybe if the municipalities, which really have that responsibility, took some ownership in this, maybe you would be more encouraged to make those phone calls and write those same letters that we're forced to do, because they're just going to add more and more and more requirements until we stand up as a group and say, stop already, this is enough. And so I think that's important, that however this ends up, that the municipalities all realize that this really is their requirement and they should be standing up and saying enough already.
I don't want to offend anybody in this room by saying this, but the municipalities that don't do SVRS really have no concept of how much work it entails. It's not just printing out poll books. It's not just entering new voter registrations. We set up all the contests, all the candidates' information. We have to record voter participation after every election, which requires scanning poll books of everyone who voted. We have to scan all their names. When the numbers don't come out right, you tell us that you had 100 voters and we come up with 104. We're the ones spending 2 hours, which just happened earlier today, 2 hours trying to figure out why those numbers are wrong. This is a huge, huge undertaking, and I just don't think that most municipalities, I don't want to say all of them, but most don't even have a concept of what it involves because you've never had to deal with it. And what Deb said about contacting the Government Accountability Board, just to give you some idea, I wrote a letter to the Government Accountability Board in cooperation with my Wisconsin County Clerks Association recently. And it's getting to the point where if the state puts more on us, we physically cannot offer these services anymore. The state is talking about making us track all your absentee ballots in SVRS. And none of us county clerks are willing to do that. We can't. There's, some of you have 100 absentee ballots every election. There's no way we're going to keep track of all those. That's the deal breaker, actually, for most county clerks. They won't do it at that point, and then it is forced onto being your responsibility. So it's becoming very serious. Our staffs just aren't big enough to do this for 23. I have 23 municipalities that I do this for, and it's me and my deputy that do all this.
all right, this was discussion and possible action item. Oh, do you? Okay, Larry, I'm sorry.
One of the speakers pointed out that the proposed charges here are not really equitable based on the number of voters. That the municipalities having a small number of registered voters are actually paying more per voter than municipalities that have a large number of registered voters.
And I'm
Is there a way
certainly
that
open
that could
to.
be made more fair?
I'm certainly open to doing it by percentage, which is, I think, what John Piaski was mentioning, to figuring out costs by percentage of voters, overall. This was just something to put out there, similar to what most counties do. They usually have a population grid like I outlined, but I don't have a problem with doing it that way. If that's what municipalities would think would be more fair, I'd certainly be open to looking at that.
It's not encouraging voters to come. The more we have, the more we gotta pay. I mean, so if we had 13 less voters, we'd pay $100 less, according to this.
Registered voters.
Any other questions, comments? Yes. Everett?
Would it be possible, now you're asking for these figures here now, is there some leeway? Even a percentage would help, right? As far as
Anything would help, ma'am.
50% of what you have down or something. I'm just trying to think of something that would, help out the towns and the village somewhat and still help your office. Maybe not either everything or nothing. Maybe it'd be better at least to get something. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah, and this is just an example of how things could be broken down.
I just want to make one comment. I'm wondering if all of the people, all of the signers of the recall petitions realized what this is going to do to every county's budget. I don't think they did.
The first 6 months of the year, the county's already spent $31,000 on elections. And that doesn't include any staff time, which is a lot.
That's this county?
This county, $31,000 the first 6 months.
Multiply that times another 71. Actually, 72 counties.
All right, what would you like us to do?
I think Everett had a real good point, and that is splitting the cost evenly with the county and municipalities. That seems more moral and more fair. At least it will seem so in the eyes of the constituents.
Are we still at the discussion stage here, or do we have a motion, or do you want?
$75 doesn't pay salary time at all. It's just.
No, I tried to set this fee schedule up so that it covered everything. Copies, staff time, materials, everything. And like La Crosse County, I know, they have it split all up. I mean, you get charged this much per copy, this much per voter registration, this much per report we have to run for you. There's a lot of that too. This much for every letter we have to send on your behalf. So, I mean, there's numerous ways of doing it, but this way, or something similar to this way, I thought would be the most, so municipalities will know what they're going to be paying up front instead of, they don't know how many new registrants they're going to have or how many copies they're going to need. So.
Melanie, what is the timeline on this? Would you want to start this in 2013 if you were going to make this change?
Well, the reason I brought it up now was because we're in the budget season, so it wouldn't be this year for, definitely not this year, because nobody's prepared for that.
Are your figures based on what it would cost this year?
Yeah, that's what this is. It was just to try to give you an idea of, if we had charged this year, what it would have looked like.
Can we break this down per election and charge that way to the municipalities?
Per election?
Uh-huh. Like if normally, what is it, 3 elections a year?
Next year, I think it'll be 2 at the most. Yeah. Hopefully, yeah.
And that's part of the problem. We did not budget for the amount of elections we had this year, so that is part of the problem also.
Same scenario, neither do the towns.
No.
Right. Oh, I know.
We're all in the same boat.
We certainly are. We have a recommendation. Obviously, it seems we don't want to vote on anything tonight, but do we have a recommendation for Mel going forward?
I would like to see a break, well, you have a breakdown somewhat here, but I don't know. What you have is for this year's, which was over and above.
Right.
Could we look at setting something up for the annual fee based on per election? If there's going to be 2 elections, it'll be that annual fee.
Sure. So like a 2-election scenario and a 4-election
Right.
year scenario? Sure.
Do you need it to, do you want to follow what John Piaski was saying and have it more based on just so much per person and not in this range?
I think that makes some sense. Have it for election per person, whatever. That would be more equitable.
What about sharing the cost instead of, hitting them with the full amount? How about if we shared it with them? Yes, Mark?
I don't know, let Mel, figure out some different scenarios, maybe like yours, like Dennis is saying, so that we've got something to look at. Is September gonna be too late? Ruth, I mean,
Should be still okay, because you don't have to publish that until October. Yeah, it should be okay.
you okay? I mean, the more scenarios we can give her, the more we have to pick from, am I right? I mean, that, maybe ease the burden for the townships, and I'm like Everett, I have to wear 2 hats, and right now I have the county hat on. But, and I think Bob's the same way, there's quite a few of us in here. So I guess my feeling is the more scenarios we can give her to look at, the more we can make it.
My question is, how much more work is this for Melanie? Because I know she's overburdened already with it. Will that take much to figure that out, Melanie?
The percentages and such won't, that won't take much time. If you want me to show more scenarios than that, I'd like a little more direction, I guess.
We usually have just the 2 elections, right?
Next year we'll just have 2, but there's every other year it's 4. You have a governor's election or a presidential election every other year.
So there's an average of 3, you would say?
Yes.
Normally.
Why don't we do that?
The cost per election, that would be one way to break it down.
Yeah, cost per election would be the easiest thing.
Ruth, do we need that in a motion, or can we just send this back to Mel? And do we need a motion to table this? No?
Postpone it.
We have a motion to postpone?
Second.
And a second. Motion by Bernadette, second by Bob Jones. Okay. All right, is there any other discussion
What is the motion?
to
Table it.
postpone this until next month? And Mel
Get our
will bring
figures
us
back.
more information. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carried. All right, we have consideration of possible action on the following resolutions and ordinances.
Resolution number 24-8-12, acknowledgement of Darrell Fenske's dedicated service to Asher County Land, Water, and Education Committee.
Motion by Bob Lidle, second by Everett Eckstein. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Resolution number 25-8-12, resolution approving additional project costs to be paid with proceeds of $15 million Public Finance Authority Fixed Rate Revenue Bonds, Series 2010A, Adams Columbia Electric Cooperative Project.
So move.
Motion by Bob Jones, second by Larry Crawford. Do we have any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Resolution 26-8-12, resolution authorizing additional clerical hours for the Park Solid Waste Department.
Motion by Everett Eckstein,
I'll second the motion.
second by Dennis Weddy. Do we have discussion? Okay.
How many hours?
It goes to,
It goes from $5.99 to $11.99. The $5.99 was the previous amount of time that an employee could work before benefits came into play, and now that number is increased to
Double.
$1,200. So yeah, so it's $11.99. So we stay below the benefit mark.
a few years ago, we cut the hours of the clerical position because of budget constraints, but it's added work now because they have to take the computer equipment, and so they have to have someone there to receive microwaves, computer equipment. What else did we add, Everett? Can you think? Scott, what else do we add? TVs, okay. So someone has to be there to accept this stuff, and I think, we don't accept, because it was mentioned that maybe we shouldn't, take this stuff anymore. But I think that's always a concern that it's going to end up in the ditch somewhere if we don't take it.
Does.
Yes, it does.
We found some computers in our ditches, so that's where they'll be.
I've seen it too.
Revenue from the recycling will cover some of this, much of this.
It will cover some, won't it?
It will cover some, but it certainly won't cover all.
All right. Well, we have a motion and a second. If we have no more discussion, we'll have a voice vote, please.
Mr. Piaski.
Yes.
Mr. Eckstein.
Yes.
Mr. Weddy.
Yes.
Mrs. Kalana.
Yes.
Mr. King.
Yes.
Mr. Wadel.
Yes.
Mr. Crawford.
Yes.
Mr. Kirschner.
Yes.
Mrs. Krentz. Mr. Jones.
Yes.
Mr. Tim.
Yes.
11 ayes.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, ordinance number 546, ordinance amending Washera County zoning maps pursuant to the authority granted in Chapter 58 Washera County Code, Zone Change, Asylum Bay Farms LLC, Town of Poisippi.
I'll move.
Motion by Larry Tim, second by Bob Wadle. Any discussion?
Where exactly is this?
It's on Highway H, just going west out of Poisippi,
Oh, on those first corners?
Top of the hill on the other side of Poisippi.
right near the town line.
If you go past where the bulk station is, the gas station.
Okay.
And there's Tim's Hair Salon.
Yep.
And there's like a little dip in the road there. It's right at that spot there.
Oh.
Can somebody tell me why they named it this?
It's the name of the company that operates out of Oshkosh.
I worked at Asylum Bay,
Yeah.
and that was in Oshkosh, so I tried.
But they're working on putting this project in there.
It actually sounds like really, it's going to be very interesting to see, what they do, and they have invited us out once they get started to see their operation, and I intend to go. It sounds really,
Demonstration at the World War II building once, and that was, same thing. It was impressive.
okay, we have a motion and a second. If there are no other questions or comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Ordinance number 547, ordinance amending Washera County zoning maps pursuant to the authority granted in Chapter 58 Washera County Code, Zone Change, Brent and Cheryl Clausen, Town of Coloma.
I'll move to approve the ordinance.
Motion by Dennis Weddy, second by Joe Piaski. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I think that's passed. All right, now we have a proclamation designating September as Juror Appreciation Month. Motion by Larry Crawford.
Second.
Second by Bob Jones. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we have an appointment for the Land, Water, and Education Committee. Enrique Saria Coloma. The term will be August 2012 through April of 2015. Okay, motion by Krantz,
I'll second the motion.
second by Weddy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign. Do we have board suggestions for future agenda items? Besides the ones we're bringing back. Yes? Motion by Eckstein to adjourn. Second by Robert Jones. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned, and don't forget the open house on the 28th from 4 to 6 p.m.
No, the next meeting will be here.
Boy, it's hard to know what to do with that, you know.
Mark, you got a rubber band?